Let's cross live down near a suburb near you in Ipswich. Mr. Ipswich, he is the history of Ipswich. He is Paul, here's Harry, the Hates Peacock from
Hey, Danny, how you going?
historyouthere.com. And Harry, your stories are generating a new listener out there. You know, we're going to talk. We've nuded up. The champignons in place,
quite breezy,
and covered up with a massive one of those elephant leaves. You know, those big ones. And
it'd have to be, yeah.
And let's get into it, mate. You're going to talk about vampires. A vampire story here in Ipswich that involves nudity. Take it away there, Harry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Ipswich does have has its own vampire story, but I doubt you would have heard about it because it's overshadowed by, there's vampire stories all around the world and throughout history with death and nudity, and there's some really weird ones. So just to, I guess, to set the scene of what you're going to hear about is, in 1911 in Chicago in the US, Louise Familia was called the Vampire Widow because she poisoned 2 husbands and at least 5 others, and it was cryptically said that she had a vampirish and morbid taste for the dead. And then in 1906 in Sweden, and these are true, there was a young boy who lived with a clergyman. Now, the boy came back into town after walking to the forest, and his white sailor suit was completely drenched in blood.
Wow.
It was discovered that the boy had been sucking blood from the neck of animals, and in a hut where he'd been, they found bodies of dead cats, dogs, lambs, and a chicken. Now, the local peasants tried to lynch him, but he was saved by the clergyman with quite scientifically. And that same year in Vienna, in Austria, the daughter of a rich merchant accused her husband of hypnotising her, hanging her naked and upside down by her feet, and drinking her blood from a cut he placed in her neck. So there's some weird stuff out there. And now here in Ipswich, there was a young man called, and this is true, you can read all about it. His name was Frederick Clyde Leighton. He and his family lived at the Bennett Street in East Ipswich. They were there for over 60 years.
Is that Bennett Street?
Bennett Street, yep. In Ipswich.
East Ipswich, yeah.
I won't tell you the number in case you go stalking them with, silver crucifixes and stuff. But what happened was that he was found surrounded by dead bodies when he was plucked from shark-infested waters.
Right.
As he was hauled up over the railings, it was discovered that he was totally naked.
Right.
And the ship's rails, they were lined by a whole stack of sympathetic nurses. So the story made headlines here back in Ipswich.
Right.
Because what had happened was that Clyde was on a ship in the Bay of Bengal.
Right.
Now, when a bomb exploded, Clyde was thrown into a mid-air 2.5 somersault that sent him clear of the ship.
Right.
The force of the blast ripped the clothes off him, leaving him totally naked and surrounded by bodies, and rescued by nurses 6.5 hours later. Now, Danny, I've got to admit, the year was 1942. It was an Australian Navy ship that was attacked by 20 to 30 Japanese planes. Clyde was a 22-year-old sailor, and he survived to tell the story. And Danny, do you know the name of the ship he was on?
No.
No, it was the HMAS Vampire. So this was Ipswich's very own vampire story about death and nudity, and it made page 3 of the Queensland Times.
And wish we still had the Queensland Times as such as a paper. Well, those are great stories. Do you remember the South Brisbane Sailing Club at the Brisbane River there, the vampire? Yeah. There was 4 girls, and they got a bloke, he had 5 children, and they cut his throat, and when they got
but those stories a bit, I don't know, that's a bit modern. You might get some relatives ringing in, Danny.
Oh, well, good on them, but I'm just saying that they actually found blood in jars in their fridges. 3 went to jail, and actually I met one of those when I was in organising a ball for the prisoners with Wayne P. Roberts and that back in the day. But anyway, and they did that, and it was very sad, but they used to love drinking blood. But then again, what's black pudding? It's just congealed blood.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, I'm not sure it's human, though, but anyway, look,
it's not human blood. Turn it up. But listen, your stories are brilliant. Go on.
Well, I just want to finish this story with a little lighter note to cheer people up. I've got to get because there were actually 8 men killed when the vampire was sunk. So it was tragic. But one of those men who was killed on the vampire, his name was Ronald McDonald. So the vampire killed Ronald McDonald, and that's true too.
Mate, you know, storytelling is an art. A lot of people in radio have lost that art. You've got a great ability to tell a great story and have a punchline.
Thank you, Danny.
Wacko bango. And how do we get that story's coming? I see it on Facebook. It's on Facebook.
This story is going to be posted tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to see a photo of Clyde from Ipswich and his chip HMS Vampire, and that's on historyouthere.com.
And don't forget, that's Bennett Street at West Ipswich.